Hey everybody, Stephanie here with the Machine Gun Nest with our newest legal update. And as you can guess, the ATF is at it again and they are changing rules. So let's build some context here. So they're changing rules regarding solvent traps and suppressors, but before we dive in, I want to explain what those things even are, because we know that it's kind of a niche community within the gun world. So what is a suppressor? I'm sure that you've seen these in movies. Sometimes people call them silencers. It's basically a small tube-shaped device that you can twist onto the end of your barrel that suppresses sound, that takes it from an immediate level of hearing damage to a hearing safe level of sound. So that could be like taking it from standing next to a rocket launch to a jackhammer. Either way, if you're using a suppressor, it's not something you want to stand next to for a long period of time because the decibel levels are still quite high. So let me show you a suppressor and show you how it works, because it's a really simple, so it's made up of a tube, and then it has an inner core. Now the inner core, these are called baffles. This can be a single piece like this, or it can be made with individual baffles that kind of layer in. And so the purpose of this is when the bullet is pushed through, it dissipates a lot of the gases and reduces the sound as it comes out. So it's really, really simple. And so overall, we have the tube, the baffles, and then an end cap. And those all just kind of slide in together and screw right onto the end of your threaded barrel. So it's a really simple thing. And there are a lot of misconceptions surrounding this device. Again, a lot of people think this is going to turn you into an assassin or give you some superhuman ability to shoot or commit crimes with, when that's just simply not true. There have been some really great campaigns in the past called Fight the Noise and others, where you can kind of plug in and learn more about suppressors and why they aren't scary or shouldn't be regulated the way they are. So again, that's Fight the Noise, and check out Silencer Co. They are the company behind it, and they make some of our personal favorite suppressors. So check out Silencer Co. if you haven't purchased one before. So what is going on? How do I get a suppressor? So a suppressor is legal to own in most states, and it's legal to own here in the state of Maryland. It's an item that's regulated by the NFA, the National Firearms Act. That typically means if you want to purchase a suppressor, it's going to take a $200 tax stamp, some fingerprinting, and going through what's called a Form 4 on the ATF to purchase. And then after some waiting time, you are then able to come to your shop, like us here at the Machine Gun Nest, pick up your suppressor, and enjoy a more hearing safe, more hearing friendly version of your firearm. Really, really easy process and not so painful. So here's where it gets interesting. A lot of people don't know that there is this item out there called a solvent trap. You may have heard about something like this on Reddit, or heard your really intense gun hobbyist friends talk about a solvent trap. So a solvent trap, similar to a suppressor, is made up of a tube, but instead of a single core, some of them are single core, it has an inner piece. It can either be a core like this, or made of things called cups. And it's basically a layering of these little metal cups, similar to baffles in a suppressor, that would help absorb solvent. So that's a solvent trap, is essentially a cleaning tool that you would attach, screw onto the end of your firearm. And when you're cleaning it, you could kind of tip it down, and it would collect a lot of those solvents. There are a lot of different solvents used to clean firearms, and they can be corrosive. They could make a complete mess. If you're one of the people out there that cleans your firearm, you might have a solvent trap. Now, unlike a suppressor, a solvent trap is missing two things. It's missing, one, a hole for something to exit, because it's meant to trap that solvent, and it's missing a serial number because it's not a serialed device. It's not a firearm. It's not meant to function as a suppressor. It's meant to be something that catches the cleaning solvents that comes out. Now, here's what's happening. Previously, and kind of even currently, because the ATF hasn't really clarified what's going on, you could buy a package of parts and assemble your own suppressor. And then instead of using the ATF Form 4, you would go through the path of an ATF Form 1, have a little bit of a shorter wait time, serial this, and convert that solvent trap into a functioning suppressor, because most of the parts are very, very similar. And that's a really cool thing to do. It still does require expertise. If you're drilling a hole into the end of a solvent trap, it's not as simple as just grabbing your Milwaukee and ramming a hole down in there and hoping for the best. It does take a level of expertise. Now we've learned what a suppressor is, we've learned what a solvent trap is, we've learned you know, before, right now, and previously that the ATF loves to change definitions and procedures. So what's going on? What is this legal update all about? This is what it's about. So you've been able previously to take a solvent trap, bore a hole through it with the correct expertise, and use the ATF Form 1 to legally convert that solvent trap into a suppressor. No big deal, right? But now they're requiring more. Now they're saying we have to submit photos, we have to explain our intent behind the items that we're using. And so far from what we've heard, now I've tried calling the ATF all day about this, and they're giving me the 1-2 click. I call and I actually make it through their phone tree, and I hear somebody pick up the phone and they have hung up on me. I know that their lines are blowing up right now, and I wanted to catch some audio recording even of what's going on, but I haven't even been able to get that, which is just ridiculous as a firearms dealer and manufacturer myself, that they're not offering clarity to me. So we learned a few days ago on Reddit, if you hit up the NFA subreddit, which is r/NFA, there have been hundreds of posts on a thread of people sharing that they have legally purchased a solvent trap, gone through the Form 1 process, which has always been legal, and have been denied. Now we know that anecdote does not equal data, but the sheer volume of this happening is saying something, that the ATF just kind of overnight has changed their mind about converting solvent traps to suppressors. Now, according to the ATF, what has been said, you can check out QuietBore. They've manufactured really great kits to convert to suppressors. So QuietBore was actually one of the few people to have an interaction with the ATF, and here's what they shared and here's what we found out. They are requiring photos, and they also said that you have to have a CNC machine to mill out a billet of some sort to actually convert that legally into a suppressor. You have to have a 3D printer, but they did curiously say you could acquire some parts from something like Home Depot or Lowe's. So again, that just creates a mess. It creates a subjective mess, and it's unenforceable, because on one hand they're saying it's okay to have some of these components that you could just buy from a store, but on the other hand precursor parts have been regulated, and now on the other hand, according to what they've said, and this is what's scary, I could go out to Home Depot and buy a pipe, cut it down wanting to build a rocket with my daughter for an elementary school project, but they could raid my house saying I have the intent to turn that into a suppressor.
So he whipped out the clipboard and he basically said, so there's been a lot of AliExpress, eBay packages being dropped off here at this house. And then he was going on to say that I ordered a bunch of suppressors for I don't know how to say this without the YouTube video going down, but for we'll just say a super soaker. Yeah. He really didn't want an explanation. He just wanted me to give them back to them. And I don't really know exactly what that means, but there's nothing for me to give back to them because it was something that I never purchased. I never purchased a suppressor. I know exactly what a suppressor is. So at this point I'm a little confused. So I told the officer, look, I've never ordered a suppressor on the internet, on eBay, anywhere. I've never ordered that whatsoever. So he pulled out his clipboard and he showed me a record of things that I've purchased on the internet. And one being, I think there was 3 or 4 different items of diesel filters.
The subjective nature of all of this is very, very alarming because, again, when you have poorly written laws, no matter what the intent is, the outcome will always be an egregious violation of what is a fundamental right. So if you're not super into the firearms world, or maybe you're a gun owner and you just have something for personal protection, maybe you have a gun by your bedside for home defense, let me tell you why you need to care about this. One, the ATF cannot arbitrarily change rules and change procedures that would create criminals overnight from this process. That is just absolutely not okay. Two, it is very, very dangerous. It's a dangerous precipice when they can call the ingredients to something the final dish. It is just a disaster. It's unenforceable. And it's really scary to the common citizen because we know that this pattern never leads to anywhere good. They could say, oh, you have a metal tube of some sort. This could be for an art project for all they know, but I could get arrested for having this if somebody has a burr up their rear and wants to come arrest me over it. How can you prove intent with something like that? It's just impossible, and that's why this is scary. And third, the biggest problem of them all is that it presumes guilt and administers punishment without any due process. So no matter how you feel about suppressors, solvent traps, or any of this, it matters a lot. And here's what's going on. You might be thinking to yourself, oh, this is just so niche. This will never have anything to do with me. Well, let me tell you the pattern. Bump stocks. We know those aren't machine guns, but they started to call them machine guns. Forced reset triggers. Those aren't machine guns, but they're calling them machine guns and redefining machine guns as rate of fire. A pistol brace. Now they're calling pistols rifles if there's a pistol brace on the end of it. And now they're coming after solvent traps and calling them suppressors when they're not. So you can't fault us and you can't fault the gun community for saying, you know what? When Joe Biden, like in the State of the Union, says we want to come after your assault weapons, I believe him when he's saying that. It might sound crazy and you might think that's far-fetched, but if you're paying attention to what's happening in the pattern of just the past 2 years, they are laying the foundation for doing that very thing. They're laying the foundation for creating so much ambiguity around these definitions that one day it will be plausible that they can come after our commonly owned AR-15 rifles. So this is really scary. So please plug into our YouTube channel if you're not already. Hit subscribe, stay plugged in, and we're going to help equip you on what to do as these bills pop up when they do go through the proper channels so you can make your voice heard and call your representatives. And we'll see you next time.